On lesson number 6, the review questions on the back there we don't have very many to work through, just 12 through 14. So how many doors were on the ark? Yeah, one, right? It's a pretty important concept. There was only one way out of judgment to salvation, a way delivered from judgment. There was only one way onto the ark for that. It's going to be important to remember that as we move forward. Did Noah warn the people of the coming judgment? Did he warn anybody, or was it just sudden?
He did,
with
but they
no
called
warning?
him a fool, right?
What's that?
He did, but they called him a fool, right?
Yeah, he preached. I mean, it says that he preached righteousness for 120 years, right? So he warned everybody. Everybody knew that the judgment was coming. They just refused to listen. So man wanted to build a tower to bring honor to A, God, B, Noah, or C, himself.
C.
Talking about, yeah. What? C? Yes.
What?
Yep.
What? Yep. What?
Thought it was D, but there is no D. So. Yeah, it's C. Yeah. The main reason was to just exalt themselves, right? To kind of, we talked about how they used tar for mortar to make the tower waterproof, as if they were protecting themselves from another judgment day of the flood. So, okay, I think that takes us into lesson number 7 then. God called and guided Abraham.
All right, so lesson 7, and some of these lessons are, some of them feel really spiritual and deep. Some are more feel sort of historical, like last week. And some the concepts. We just it's like we need to understand some concepts that are going to be built on later. And that's tonight is kind of like that. There's some important concepts that we'll get tonight. So it may take a little effort on your part, because if you want to put it all together, which is our goal of kind of understanding the central message of the Bible and what it means to you, but yet if you want to understand it deeply, it's like we just got to get each brick in the wall as we go down this down the road here. So a few things just to kind of orient you. So the flood was about 1,600 years after creation. It was about 2350 BC. And we're going to follow the line of Shem. Remember, there was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And we could follow the rest of those brothers, and we could figure out, in a sense, which people groups come from which one, but we won't take the time to dig into that. But we will follow Shem. And it's going to go from the ancestry is going to go from Shem to Abraham. So maybe you haven't heard of Shem, but I'm sure everybody has heard of Abraham. And this is going to be the beginning of the nation Israel. And remember how we looked at when we were studying where we get the Bible from and how God was going to use the people Israel, the Jewish people, as his messengers to the entire world. And so we looked at that like they were kind of like if you were speaking through a megaphone, you could write on the side Israel, and God was going to speak to the whole world through Israel. And so we're kind of getting started down that road of understanding that today. So Abraham, or Abram, is when we start off. His name's going to be changed to Abraham. Is about 300 to 350 years after the flood. So just to kind of orient you where we are. And the Bible doesn't really speak much about any intervention from God during those times, but God had not forgotten his promise. Way back in Genesis 3:15, what was the central point of that promise? Do y'all remember that? Genesis 3:15? We kind of had to look ahead a little bit, but God promised something in Genesis 3:15. Do y'all remember what it was?
A deliverer?
Basically a deliverer. So you would have to know some of the future events to really know that. He was going to crush the head of Satan, take Satan's authority. So that meant he was going to deliver people from the control of Satan, sin, and death. It's just absolutely a critical point, that freedom that we all kind of yearn for. And so that's promised, freedom from guilt, from punishment, from shame. There's so much in there. And so we're going to head down that journey tonight, really. So as time went along, there were a few people in each generation that trusted God. And by trusting God is they recognized their situation. Kind of like Abel recognized that, hey, I've gone my own way against God. I've sinned against God. I've rebelled against God. I deserve to die. And he came to God, remember the way God said, bringing a substitute, a sacrifice, and God accepted him. And so Abram and his wife Sarah had come to God in that same way. They had trusted God. There were a few people in each generation that trust God. They believed him. So let's kind of introduce Abram. And if you want to understand the Bible, you really have to understand this man, Abram, or I'll call him Abraham, but he's not really Abraham yet. His name's Abram. So let's go to Garrett, if you'll kick us off with Genesis 11, 10 and 11, and then Cameron, Genesis 11, 27 to 30. Oh, you're not reading tonight. Okay. Don't you normally read? Oh, you just answer questions.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, Casey, we'll jump over to you for that one. Go ahead, Garrett.
This is the account of Shem's family line. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad.
Your guess is good as mine, so you just carry on.
And after he became the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had other sons and daughters.
This is the account of Terah's family line. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. And the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah.
Yeah.
She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was childless because she was not able to conceive.
Okay, so do y'all have a map in your outline?
It's in the very back, something like that.
So y'all can just kind of see where it gives you a little bit of we start in Ur. Now, if you remember during the Iraq War, you may have heard of Ur quite a bit. So it's still there. It's just south of Babel, and their journey. Now we don't know exactly. It says that Abraham is going to be called to take this journey to go to the promised land. So So what's going on here is Abraham is being called out, and God's going to send him to a land that he's going to reveal to him. That land is going to be the land of Canaan. What do we know that as today? Israel. So he's going to take him quite a long journey to go to the land of Israel. So he's starting off in Ur, which is just south. Remember, they started off in Babel. The people had spread. The descendants of Shem did not spread far. They spread just in this whole region, the Mediterranean region. The rest spread basically over the entire world. So you can see on your map there, they're going to start in Ur, which is in Iraq, modern-day Iraq, and go all the way up to Iran, up near Turkey, into Turkey a bit, and then down into modern-day Israel. So where they're going to head. So God He promised them this land. So hence the promised land. So let's read. And then God moved him. He moved as far as Haran. God speaks to him again and makes some promises to him. These promises, the promises are pretty fascinating once you dig into them. So let's just take a look. Genesis 12, 1 and 4, and we'll come back and pick up 2 and 3 in just a minute. But
1 and 4.
just 1 and 4, yeah.
The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." So Abram went, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran.
So Abram, the ages of people was kind of going down after the flood, down to they'll become more of a normal lifespan. Abraham's father, Terah, lived to be 205. Abraham is going to live to be 175, but he's spoken of as old at 75. So he's kind of an old guy when he starts off on this trip, but he's got quite a few years left in him. So they had trusted God. I don't know if y'all were relating that any personally here, but don't do that.
He's still hitting stuff.
That's right. So verses 5 and 7 of chapter 12. Yeah.
He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh and Shechem. Thanks. At the time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him.
So he built an altar. That means he offered a blood sacrifice. So later the Bible's going to speak of Abraham as righteous. So that doesn't mean that he never sinned. He built an altar and offered a sacrifice. So he had sinned. And he's saying to God, I've sinned. I've gone again, just like Abel, just like Noah did. And they came to God with a substitute, and God accepted that substitute and received them. And so they knew God. They were in relationship with God because God had provided that way back to him. And so Abraham and Sarah had, just like all those, just the history there of those guys, they came to God in the same way. And Abram is going to be called a Hebrew. This is the first instance of where the people start to be known as the Hebrews. So let's look at verses 2 and 3 and look at these promises. These promises will impact the rest of the Bible. They impact you today, as a matter of fact. They impact politics today. It's crazy. But let's read verses 2 and 3.
I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.
So, I will make you a great nation. Did he do that? Did God make? How do you know? Did he do that? Y'all can be confident.
Yes.
There is a nation over in the Middle East right now kicking butt. Like it or not, they are one of the top military forces. Tiny nation, size of New Jersey, but they're one of the top military forces, top economies. They rank in the world. So that is true today. Now, it wasn't true for a period of time. They just disappeared for a while, but they came back. And so this promise is a permanent promise, that I will make you a great nation. Now, that's a long distance promise. So we're talking about the long distance of that. So here's Abraham, 75 years old. Back here is recorded, God promised him, I'm going to make you a great nation. That is almost unbelievable. His wife was also old, past the childbearing years. And he promised them, I'm going to make you a great nation. So that's a cool promise for a couple of reasons. Those types of having descendants was very important in this day to people, for their lineage to be carried on. So it's personal. He's going to have a son. That's the promise. It's this close by promise, and it's a huge long distance promise also. So it encompasses both of those. And then the second one, I will make your name great. So we're sitting here talking. I threw out the name Abraham, a man from way back in Genesis. Everybody knew about him, right? Who descends from Abraham?
A lot of the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean the Arabs, all the Arabs, they descend from Abraham. All the Jewish people descend from Abraham. It's like Abraham, I'll make your name great. So there's hardly a person with a greater name, really, for so many people groups as Abraham. So that promise certainly held true. And then he said, the next one, what's the next one? I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. So, for the people of Israel, God's not saying that they will always do the right thing. In fact, God says, when they do wrong, I will discipline them. I'll deal with them. But he says, I'll take care of that, not the rest of you nations. And so when I said politics, is that when Israel became a nation again, there were a lot of people that believed the Bible, and they would give advice to the government, like the United States government. Hey, be careful how you treat Israel. Bless Israel, and we'll be blessed. And we could go and prove that out, but we're not going to try to do that tonight. But that's the promise. If the rest of those are true, this one is true too. And the next one says, all people on earth will be blessed through you. So there's a descendant of Abraham that will bless the entire world. And so those are some pretty heavy-duty promises made to this man, Abraham, back in the day. So everything, it's like all of them hinged on that first promise. The first promise that I will make you into a great nation. In other words, you're going to have a son. That was basically what he's telling him. And that son will become a great nation. So let's go to chapter 15. He's going to renew the promises. 15 verses 1 and 2. Is that Micah? And then 5 and 6 also, Micah.
After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness.
So this is like a key statement, and this is going to be repeated in the New Testament. So this is a powerful statement. Abraham believed God, and God. You remember, everybody has an account, right? And what do we owe in that account? Death. Why?
Sin.
What?
Sin.
Sin. So we owe death. And God said, Abraham, because you believe me, not because you try to work and do all these things like Cain, but because you believe me, like Abel, because you believe me, I'm going to put righteousness in your account. Now, most people of that day, because Abram believed God, he lived a good life, what we would call a good life, but he was not what you would call righteous and holy. And God said, I will accept you as if you were completely holy, as if you'd never sinned. I'll accept you into relationship with me because you believe me. And so we're getting to some key principles to understanding how God works. Which verses did we read to there?
5 and 6.
Let's go to another verse, Hebrews 11:10.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay.
For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God.
So that is in the New Testament, that's referring to Abraham. So Abraham he wasn't trusted in how good a life he lived. He was going to live a good life, but he had believed God. God had given him righteousness, and he said, I got it. And he said, I believe you so much that I know I'm looking forward to one day living in heaven with you, God, forever. I know that's going to happen. That's his level of trust, that he believed God and trusted him. So, belief, there's some different words that we use, that the Bible uses for belief, just to get a little bit fuller understanding. Faith, trust, confidence, they're all used interchangeable. And Abraham believed God. He put his faith in God. He trusted God. He had confidence in God. So you have the like a little equation there. Left me there. Thank you. You know. God said you'll have a son. God is the truthful. He is truthful. He is the creator. He is truthful. So Abraham will have a son. And Abraham believed that and accepted that. So when we believe something, it needs to be based on fact. So if, I use this example all the time, it's old, if you guys have heard it, I know, but back years ago, there was somebody was going into like the pharmacies, and they were poisoning Tylenol, like putting cyanide into the Tylenol bottles. And
And I'm saying good job.
oh, I thought you were showing me. So they were poisoning the Tylenol bottles. So with like this little tiny needle and putting it into so somebody take the Tylenol bottle and they could believe all they wanted that Tylenol was going to cure their headache. But it was not going to cure their headache, it was going to kill them. You could believe it as hard as you wanted. So if you believe something, it needs to be based on fact. So the Bible, in a sense, accepts that and says, investigate. Check it out. This is fact. But you must connect that with belief to get the good from it. So Abraham believed God. He knew the factual, truthful God, the Creator. He believed Him, and God credited to his account righteousness. Let's go. Is this verse on your outline? Romans 4, 1 through 5?
So what's the equation?
The equation is God said you will have a son, plus the truthful God, the Creator, equals Abraham will have a son. So
What did you say?
there's a verse, Romans 4, 1 through 5. Is that on your outline?
No.
Romans.
Are you laughing at my equation, Lou?
It's a lot of words for a very short
Brooke,
line.
are you laughing at my equation?
No,
I'm laughing at
never.
the short lines.
Okay.
Are you sure that's what it is? You see what it is on there?
Things don't always work out the way you plan. Have y'all noticed that in life?
Make space.
Want son.
Is that
you
what
say?
you wanted?
That's what I wanted. Garrett, back up here.
Yeah.
Romans 4.
Want
All right.
son, ask for it, gets it.
Okay, well,
I have God said
Fill in those
plus
blanks.
God tells truth equals it will happen.
I like that one
Yeah.
better.
Same thing.
same thing. We'll go with Garrett's.
God said, God tells you.
All right.
it will happen.
Okay. Let's move on from our equations. Lori, will you read Romans 4, 1 through 5? This kind of summarizes all of this, I think.
What then shall we say that Abraham, our forefather, according to the flesh, discovered in this matter? If in fact Abraham was justified by works, he had something to boast about, but not before God. What does Scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now to the one who works, wages are not credited as a gift, but as an obligation. However, to the one who does not work, but trusts God, who justifies the ungodly, their faith is credited as righteousness.
So this is quoting that Old Testament, that verse we just read in Genesis, that Abraham believed God and God credited to him righteousness. So don't feel like you have to understand everything about that, but that's a concept, it's a principle. We're going to build on it later. So it's a principle that that is a lot of things are going to be built upon that. So that's just that fact of God, of Abraham believed God, and God credited to his account righteousness. Okay, so Abraham and Sarai had a son. His name is Isaac. And Abraham certainly valued and treasured the son, of course, the son of his old age, the son of promise. And God's going to ask something of Abraham that is like really, really difficult. So let's introduce this. Garrett, I'm going to ask you to read a bunch of verses, okay? Are you
Okay.
good with that?
I'm good with it.
Start off with verses 1 through 3 of chapter 21. Okay? This will introduce what we're going to talk about here.
Okay. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him.
So now you could look at this and for a minute go, wow, child sacrifice. This is not a good look for the Bible. And obviously God had condemned child sacrifice in all these nations around Israel at this time and later. And children are valuable. The Bible, God places high value on children, born and unborn. And so this story is a little different perspective that we're going to have to get a hold of. So we're going to read this, and then we'll talk about it. God's going to call Abram to a very difficult thing, and his faith is going to be tested to the max, to say the least. Remember, this is a narrative. This is real history. This happened. She's trying to keep you focused there, Carson. All right. Okay.
What am I reading?
Why don't you read 4 through 18
Okay.
of Genesis? Wait a minute.
21?
Genesis.
Yeah.
When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years.
I think I gave you. Try chapter 22.
It's 22.
Yeah. My bad.
You want 1 through 18? Is that what you
Yeah.
want?
Yeah. Thanks, Cam.
Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he sent out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servant, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took his knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram, caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time, and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me.
Okay, so this story is going to illustrate some key truths in a very dramatic fashion, obviously. So, for one thing, Abraham had faith. And it's, if you're at a amusement park and you're watching the roller coaster go, do the loop-de-loops and all that kind of stuff, and you're there with your friend and you go, hey, let's go let's take a ride. And he goes, no, I don't think so. I don't feel like it today. And he goes, what? You don't trust it? No, I believe look, these guys have maintained this thing, and it's designed well, and no, it's a safe thing. Well, come on, let's go. He has doubts. It impacts what he does or what he doesn't do. We have, in a sense, proof of Abraham's faith because of what he did. He didn't do what he did to earn God's blessing. He did what he did because of faith. So faith changes what you do. So but those things have to be in the right order. Abraham believed God, and then he took his son up on the mountain to offer him as God said. And we saw it in Hebrews. Let's read this real quick. Hebrews 11:17 to 19. Who's next? Casey, got that?
By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promise was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death.
So Abraham trusted God. That's a key ingredient. Just like way back when it said Abraham trusted God, and God credited to him righteousness. And at the same time, that faith changed what he did. And another key ingredient to this is the idea of a substitute that God is illustrating here. You see, this is so personal, it's real, and it's a dramatic impact on the rest of the Bible, what happens here on that mountain that day. Because Isaac was condemned to die, right? He was condemned to die, bound up, put on the altar, and there's Abraham with the knife, just like with the sacrificial lamb. He's going to kill him. He's going to put the knife into him. And because that's what God is calling him, he's trusting God. He said, well, I'm going to do what God asked me to do. God will raise him from the dead, but I'm going to do what God asked me to do. And there's Isaac about to die. And I'm going to put words into Isaac's mouth, okay? This isn't written. This isn't here. This is me. I can see Isaac look over and see that ram caught by its horn in the bushes. And Isaac say to Abraham, "Daddy, let that ram die in my place." And that is what happened. The ram was provided by God. The ram was put on the altar. Isaac was taken off the altar. The ram died in place of Isaac as a substitute, the innocent dying for the guilty. And God's making a huge, dramatic illustration both of faith and substitution that he's going to make here with this real thing that happened. And it's like God was so pleased at it. I mean, if it's okay to say, God, it's like God standing up, and just in a sense gushing over Abraham. Abraham, because you trusted me, and you're willing to offer your only son, and to do what I said, and you believe me enough to follow through and do what I said, I will bless you all the more. I will bless the whole world because of this act today. The whole world will be blessed because of this. That was because of Abraham's faith. He couldn't have done enough to earn that kind of blessing. He believed God, and God just, boom, just says, everything will be different now because you have believed me. So let's, how far do we go on here?
15, 16.
Yeah, let's read that again. Let's go ahead. Let's read that again. We've already read that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, but go ahead. We'll read it again. We'll read that.
The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, But because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me.
So that was kind of an explanation point on this whole situation. And it's the truths are just foundational. It's about judgment, it's about faith, and it's about deliverance through a substitute. And there's going to be, the New Testament writers are going to write about this, because it's going to illustrate so many truths about God, about trusting God, about a substitute, how we can know God, and what God has provided for us. But the faith had to be real, and it had to be personal. A life for life, the innocent dying for the guilty, like Abel and the lamb. If you remember almost the same illustration, the ram is for Isaac. It was God's idea for man to come to God, to himself in this way, trusting him, believing him. Faith is a cornerstone in this foundation that we're building. So that's some of the things that we want you to get a hold of. And I'll tell you, you can read the whole Bible in a cursory fashion, and you can listen to what people say, different religions say, and they've missed this whole point. And it's absolutely critical for understanding the rest of the Bible, for understanding who God is, how we can know God, and how we can fulfill what he's called us to. So I think that wraps up 7.